Welcome back, everyone. We are meeting today with Dean Pianta. We are going to be talking, or continuing rather, our focus on military, but again, a more expansive view of the military. So we talk a lot or think about our active duty personnel, our reservists, and also our vets. Of course, we always need to remember them first and foremost. We don't always talk about those who serve, right? And what we mean by that is there is a huge civilian infrastructure that supports our active duty and reservist personnel as they go into theater, and ensuring that they have the highest level of technological capability, that they are at readiness in every set of weaponry that they need, whether that's physical weaponry or that is cognitive or technological. There are a huge number of elements that come together, and people who create the infrastructure to support. And so we're so pleased to have Dean with us today and to talk about one piece of this. I've known Dean for quite some time, and he's just one of those people that sees the big picture. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and bring him on and see. We were having a little trouble connecting last. Oh, there it comes right on up. Welcome, Dean. I've already had a chance to kind of introduce our segment, so
Excellent.
I'm actually going to move it right over to you and have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and particularly your primary focus area right now to support our military and all of the security sector units that contribute.
Yeah, great. I just want to make sure the audio is okay. You're good?
Yes, we're all
okay,
good.
Great. And thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me, JJ. It's always a pleasure. I've put it in my text many times. It's always an education, actually, to spend time with you. And today doesn't fail already. So yeah, the whole background is interesting, too. I was speaking with some interns. Various companies I've worked with always have had great intern programs. And one of the things I really like is it makes you think about what's worth passing on to an early generation, early talent, and so forth. Yeah. And for me, I'll start with, boom, I'm right out of college. I'm developing software to help the Marine Corps deploy. At the time, it was Operation Restore Hope. And I find myself as the only person without a gun, and I'm armed with my laptop in Mogadishu, Somalia, and I'm scaling maritime prepositioning force ships, tagging equipment, and I walk away from the whole thing, and I just kind of got it. At such an early age to be like, wait, my software that I just developed is in use. Yeah. And these guys get to do their retrograde operations and get back to the States faster when this whole logistics thing works. And that's almost, right there, if there was a 2-minute pitch, know your customer. Talk about the passion, what keeps you up past, the evening news, past 10 o'clock, whatever, when you get an email, hey, we got to fix this. Oh, I identify with the customer and I get it, So flash forward, a few years till now. And what is the mission now? It's not just writing logistics software to help them, figure out how to pack the ship and come home. It's, for me, mostly securing solutions, and along the way, there have been stops in e-learning, there have been stops in collaboration, and it's all about how do we work better together, to the point around making sure, the military hits the ground. Are we an effective, efficient force? Has always been about knowledge transfer. And I think it's not even just, hey, go to the schoolhouse, go learn the basics. It's really the tip of the spear knowledge that I've always focused on and found so interesting, because the pace at which innovation is happening has now left such a gap as us as humans catch up, that gap is creating a huge problem. I think the innovation coming out of the big tech sector overall is so advanced, we're almost too fast. We can't keep up. So I want to spend just as much time innovating as I do, even more so, on knowledge transfer. And as I mentioned, that tip of the spear knowledge, I want to give secure solutions that are, when possible, cloud-based, and we'll get why that's so important, in the hands of soldiers, civilians, everyone involved in the picture, so that we stay abreast of, okay, I learned something. Shame on us for, hey, company A learned it and company B failed because they didn't know it. Well, how much time was between company A and company B of experiencing the exact same problem? A, it could have been passed on. B, it could have actually been automated and completely avoided. And to that point, C, AI could have been trained to understand it and completely avoid the situation. So B never even saw it. With technology, we are fully in scope to do all these types of things. But at the end of the day, it does come down to we are people. We can only take in so much. But along the way, can we start to change our culture to better adopt these things? And that gets into a whole new other dimension, which you and I always go off on so many tangents, but it's just the dimension of, are we a culture of feedback? And I had a chief learning officer of a recent, one of the large agencies in telecommunications said, guys, we need to transform ourselves into a culture of feedback culture. Because only through that do we really crowdsource information and actually give feedback, which we think this is meaningful, this is how we treat it, and so forth. But yeah, it's around collaboration, it's around knowledge transfer, how do we maximize that? And most importantly, shame on me for thinking like I'm a software company of 20 years ago where I would just develop software and put it out and say, oh yeah, the military will just take care of it. No, it's incumbent on me as a software vendor to secure it, to understand how to deploy it in the cloud, to follow the risk management framework, the NIST controls, everything the experts say I have to do, and then beyond, so that I know how it's being consumed, who's consuming it, who's not consuming it, and that a foreign actor can't attack it, compromise it, actually do bad things with it, which is what we've seen in so many cases in the media. It's one thing to compromise the system and bring it down. It's completely another to compromise the system and leverage it for someone else's good and our bad, So that kicks off lots of conversations. I don't know if that's where you want me to open, but we can go anywhere with this.
You're right. We absolutely can. There are so many facets to this. And so I want to point out two. The first is, quite frankly, that there are many facets to this. What I entered with, which I'm sure you were able to see because I was doing it as you were logging on, was really to say that we focus on our active duty and reservist personnel. And we also talk a lot about our vets, of course. And certainly, these are our number one folks that we are trying to ensure at readiness when they have to go into theater. But there's this huge infrastructure underneath it that serve those who serve. Yeah. And there is an expanding requirement that we recognize how everyone is part of this greater puzzle, which leads into point two. And point two is that when I started this journey, one of the first things that I felt was missing in politics was the definition of mission success. Mm-hmm. And I borrow that from the military because it is the one place where I see all the factions and all the problems kind of disappear in order to focus on mission goal. Yeah. And so mission goal as a nation, in my mind, and what the role of government is getting to this national readiness space. I bring this up very specifically because of what you were saying. It's not just the military anymore. Cyber defense is crossing boundaries. They're working actually around our military to hit our least defending citizens, our individuals who are the least knowledgeable about the technology. Because once they infiltrate there, they can work their way through to the spaces that they need to. And so as you talk about education and you talk about, hey, it's not enough for me to give up, once I give up ownership or once I sell something to the military, it doesn't stop there. As a citizen, you have to think beyond that. As a company that supports the country, you have to think beyond that.
Yep.
But what is that thought, right? And what is it that every citizen, maybe they can't do what you do, but they need to know that it exists. They need to understand what it means. They need to know who to contact if they see problems. And they need to recognize that when we talk about national issues and international issues with regard to military, that people like you exist and that we need you and how all of that comes together. So what I'd like to do is take where you started, and what you did is, yes, appropriately took a broad swath, right? How do we encapsulate that and understand it? Remember, not everyone's had all of your training, including myself. So how do we wrap our arms around how this fits into this greater military and national readiness structure? There's cyber defense, but there's also understanding cloud-based technology. not being afraid of it. But then there's the pathway of information, data. There's that web. It's overwhelming to even the most interested. But I'm hoping maybe you can help us break it down a little bit, because there's a lot of pieces here.
Yeah. We can look at how far we've come and certain things that have been instrumental. I will give hats off to, within the federal civilian government programs, and I'm talking to security right now, programs like FedRAMP. Our ability to recognize, wow, every agency has a basic mission of securing their applications.
Absolutely.
10 years ago, everyone sought an authority to operate, meaning how is a system in a good state, known good state, and it can't be compromised. So when we go after these authorities to operate, ATO, if you will, we all approached it differently. 10 agencies who bought the same software and actually put it in the same data center would do the same type of thing. So we talk about inefficiencies, cost overruns, and these things are important, but probably the most important is because not everyone did it right. Like you just said, the weakest link is the doorway for the bad guy. So that why don't we, instead of being the lowest common denominator, think about what can we all share best practices and be good at. So I like the unifying boards like FedRAMP. DISA has done something identical in many ways to higher levels of security. I don't think, and spend a great time in the intelligence community, I don't think that group has been solidified across all agencies to approach security the same way. That would have to come eventually, using the same basic guidelines that NIST has defined for federal and DoD. But what's interesting, the company I'm with now, we understand how to do this in the U.S. market really, really well. And in talking to, this week, I think it was Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, the same type of mission. How do we set up secure cloud services? I mentioned cloud earlier because that is an enabling technology, groundbreaking once you get past all the buzzwords. And it's encapsulated in everything from, everyone makes the example of the Tesla car, to certain software providers. If I emphasize changing my code daily, so thinking about releasing updates to software daily, updating my car, that's in the garage, whoever makes it, I've become so nimble that the ability to then push out a secure patch. I mean, it's not about new capability, but hey, we see a problem. We're so good at running through the whole process of getting you the latest updating software that if push comes to shove, we can fix patches, holes, security issues. So that's a key piece, and that's what we truly like about the cloud. We have challenges, though, as you know, when we go into more tactical environments with that, but I'll leave that for a different discussion. Clearly, the cloud has done great things for us. We have a common place that vendors can look after the public good, and it is incumbent upon them. And it's a major shift we got to recognize. We don't produce software handed over to an agency in the government, much less we shouldn't to any critical infrastructure, and say, hey, good luck, call me with the 1-800 because I'm going to charge you 20% in the out years if you have a problem. But if they never call us, A, we don't know if they installed it. B, more importantly, we don't know if they installed it properly. We don't know how they secured it. In terms of innovation, I don't know which features they use and don't use. So if they're all going through the same pipe and I as a vendor support that, I can look at what are the most used features. I can look at where the possible security, and then we all agree this is the best way to keep it up. So I dug more on the security and cloud side once again. And I know your question starts to get more into, how do we as across the entire nation look at what is success? And that is, I'll emphasize, a key piece. Someone came to me internally and wanted to set up a new learning management system, within the company. And I said, okay, well, your first goal is to go to executive management and say, what does success look like? Exactly to your point. And they're like, well, I need to host these type of trainings. I'm like, yeah, but why? Don't tell me the what. Put the why behind, the what.
I'm recruiting you.
Yes. You've done it.
Why? Can we just ask that question once in a while?
Exactly. And that is such a key piece here because, as you mentioned, it guides our everyday. We will hit junctures over the next 30 days, 60, 90, where if we know why, we know how to answer those questions that come up. It gives us clarity of thought because, okay, the real measure of success is point 1 and then point 2, point 3. If it doesn't satisfy any of those, wait, why are we doing this again? You know, so that clarity is really, really key. And that's obviously missing from a lot of areas. But I will go.
If I could,
yeah, please.
Before you go on, I want to summarize just a little bit the couple points you made. So one is that the cloud, and so as we talk about it, so I focus on a lot of times national readiness. The cloud then, it allows one, sharing, two, communication that is essentially in the same language. That's a metaphor, but conceptually everything can connect. And then three, that means when we need to make changes, it's automatically shared. And so when we look at the national readiness past just military, thinking into the civilian world, we need to have enough trust to connect. But when we do, it makes the entire nation stronger, especially those who are maybe not equipped on their own individually to act in the safety security space that we're now expecting them to, without any actual requirement, but just kind of patriotic duty to the country. Everybody has a part now. Okay, so then to move on, right, to the next one, which is this set of questions. Okay, if the answer is because we've always done it this way, by and large, it's the wrong answer.
By definition.
So we need to be asking, why are we doing it this way? Not because we're constantly focused on disrupting, not because we want to reinvent the wheel all the time, but because genuinely, appropriately, and defensively, we need to evolve and constantly be evolving. It's something we see in Europe quite a bit. And my theory is it's because they are constantly under threat. We don't see that threat in our country quite so quickly or easily. And so it's actually a little bit easier to become complacent. And I think we need to ensure that we're always calling ourselves to action and saying, why are we doing it this way? What can we do better from a positive perspective? So, I kind of want to link those two a little bit because I think they are key components, and that the technology, what we call interoperability, and the organizing and facilitating structure in government is what helps make that happen.
I want to expand into one level, though, and we've touched upon it already. When we start having this common fabric, whether it's the cloud or how we all operate, that's one piece of it. But towards the innovation, it almost, and we've used the term why, which is one I love, because typically all of us operate off the what data, the operational data. In learning, we see, oh, this many people have taken it, this many people have to take it, in a month to stay compliant. Great. And if it's not happening, in customer success, operations, we talk about conversion rates, and we say, oh, average call time is this, resolution time is this. And we look at the data sometimes, oh, it's getting bad, we got to change that. Well, let's do this to fix it. That's a critical question. What is the this? We know what success looks like, but we often don't have enough information to figure it out. And that's why I pull in that why data once again. And I think this is where the fact is, the more we crowdsource information, the more we ask the why, we start to get an understanding. In my world, we look at issues and problems, and 10 years ago, well, let's ask the chief strategy officer or executive management. They'll tell us what we should build. They'll tell us how to fix this. Well, what if we ask the frontline people that deal with the customers? What if we, God forbid, ask the customers what they want? And you get into this world of, I had no idea that our customers don't think our salespeople are that educated, which is why sales cycles are so long. Oh, okay. Or what, the IVR system, the phone system where I call in to say, hey, I have this problem. Okay, push 2 if you have this problem. And before you know, you end up at the wrong person. We thought we had to train the customer success people more. Turns out our IVR is just broken, and the consumer would tell us these type of things. So what's interesting, I think, and this is back to the schoolhouse I mentioned in the IC, to be a feedback culture, I needed to empower people by not just giving them a survey. Hey, what do you think we should do? Operational research, PhDs know how many questions should be asked, how they should be asked to not skew data. We have AI to look at all the data coming in, natural language processing, to really pull out the key messages and show brilliance where possible. And I think what's great here is more so than just saying, okay, what's your input? Letting everyone know, by the way, we've taken 1 billion responses. We're acting on these 100. We're considering these 1,000. And before you know it, I have a voice in a much, much larger system. And I see change as an action of me doing something as a pure citizen. You know, I'm a nobody. When you talk to, well, everyone's a somebody. But, you know, to feel like I'm a nobody would simply, I fill out a survey. I tell Marriott, you know, and I love Marriott, but I tell them that I had an issue with something at the hotel. And if nothing changes, I'll go back to a different hotel. Nothing's changed. How likely am I going to answer and spend 5 minutes filling out a survey? I need to see change, or at least acknowledgement of they heard me. I had the pleasure of closing a loan recently, and we're not branding anybody, but it was great because they had a little happy face, you know, medium face and a sad face. And I had a sad moment that I wanted to share with them. I got a call within 30 minutes from a totally different team, not a sales team, to say, we'll fix that issue. We're very sorry. And I was blown away, you know, so much so I'd love to, you know, broadcast for them and advertise, but I won't do that here. But what was nice is I was heard, I felt like part of the community, and I instantly now feel like part of the, let me spend some more time and think about what I could do. The answers aren't going to come from one person anymore. They're going to come from all of us if we understand how to do mass personalization and understand what the mass is saying. I like this sentiment a lot. You know, it does start to give us the why, and to break it down to another commercial example, but all of the military, all of the federal civilian, all of the government issues can learn something from what I call breakout products. So I will confess to giving one name. I love my Peloton. That Peloton bike is amazing. And if you look at a Peloton bike as a breakout product, the guy who invented it, is he just brilliant, smarter than the average? God made him different? He might have, but fact is, they've chosen along the entire route from product testing to now into production and, you know, day-to-day ops to seek out in-moment data. Quality data from people to understand how could I improve the product, how can I improve the content, how can I improve everything here, and they listen. Good for them. You know, they've really figured out, and many companies have. If you look at the Fortune 50, what are they doing? They're overwhelmingly looking at customer experience. And that gets into a whole nother space, but if you do customer experience right, you empower the masses, and then, you know, how do I squeeze out what is really going to change things? And I think that's what's key, which probably the country as a whole, do I matter? No, I'm going to do my 9-to-5 job, you know, make sure I'm going to make sure my kids get to school and dream big and have nice lives, do good, obviously, good citizens, but can they move the needle on making us more secure, more prosperous, more, readiness?
I love readiness. So I want to tie a bow around this because I think you have completely come right around the corner and emphasize the very point that we need to make. Something that's been talked about in government that I was challenged with a lot. They kept saying, what are some of the major underlying issues that we're facing? And I said, honestly, you have two very serious ones. One is trust. Mm-hmm. People do not trust that you are listening. They don't trust that you're spending the money appropriately, and they don't trust that they're being told the true information. And the second one is that people want to serve. People want to be involved. They don't know how to. Mm-hmm. You know, not everybody is. Not everybody's going to quit their job and drive around the country dedicated to this.
I'm ready to sign up. I want to do that.
I have to admit, it's been pretty cool. I've had some pretty great discussions, this one included. Yeah. But people want to be able to do 2 hours or a weekend or recognize that it isn't just their time helping a candidate by holding a sign, but rather the brilliance or individual capability they have adding to the nation's ability to be at readiness. So your point of customer service, the American people being our customer, and the notion that we need to create this feedback loop and pathway so that people are being heard. Mm-hmm. How likely, because I totally agree we need to have that, how likely do you think it is that we can build it? How hard is this?
Well, it's built.
I know.
It's already built. So the likeliness is, and this is what, on a small level, you talk to an agency who has a clear mission statement. They have a couple things that enable them a little bit.
Clear mission statement.
Yeah. Not everyone knows the mission statement, but they have the challenge of it takes time to earn that feedback culture. Because once again, even within paid employees, you've got to make sure that you have that feedback global look, and there's a give take. To crowdsource information, sometimes the loud squeaky wheel is the only one that gets through, and that's not always the best input. But I think as soon as you start to crack away at that, there's an enormous amount of time and energy being put in this, and why? Well, because it leads to breakout products that makes the most money. I mean, if America is anything, it's this free market society. And the revenue that's being generated with the right product, the right service, do an orthogonal view, and hey, that could support government, that could support citizen, and that type of service. So yeah, it's already built. How do we, as at a breakdown, look at the different levels and say, okay, this isn't done by one person. Right. It's done through communities, which then ripple up and share information. To your point, if we're on a common fabric, in a secure format, how do those ripple up to at a state level and truly understand this is how the people feel? Obviously, why would a politician at any level not like to know exactly what that is in a transparent way? That's the key piece. Where are we giving so much insight and data that maybe it could be weaponized, if we want to go on that tangent, or that transparency gives someone else an unfair advantage. But if these are issues that should be public, and everyone and their thoughts, point to the right answer, whoever can best propose that and execute upon that is the right leader.
I couldn't agree more. I will say why most people haven't employed it in politics. What you've described, although you and I are privy to it and we've worked in this industry, it isn't well known. Mm-hmm. And that's why I asked you, how long would it take to build?
Yeah.
I will confess that's a question I keep asking guests, and I keep getting the same response. Now, of course, in many ways, I know the answer before I ask it, mm-hmm. but I want to drive this point home. America needs to know mm-hmm. that we have all the resources, whether they are financial, technology, or human resources, to solve any of the major issues that we're talking about. And more to the point, someone has already, at minimum, solved a portion of this puzzle. Mm-hmm. We just need to connect it. And that is what isn't happening. And that is the problem we have to solve in order to ensure the nation is at readiness. We've broken it down and made it sound pretty simple. It's not simple.
No.
But as I said to a woman recently, she goes, oh, well, it can't be done. It can't be done. I said, look, I am completely comfortable walking away from this experience and saying it's completely an impossibility. Mm-hmm. I'm a scientist. I have no problem drawing that conclusion. I said, but there is a distinct difference between improbable and impossible.
Yeah.
And simply because something is improbable does not mean that it can't be achieved. And when the necessity is so high, we need to make the attempt. So I appreciate very much you helping to point out kind of how it is that we get this structure developed, the benefits of it, and the fact that it's already built. We just need to deploy it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean, so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.